I have never seen anything like this before. Premier Danielle Smith is unleashed. She is out of the cage. She is in Super Saiyan mode.
Why are you emotional about this?
I'm pissed. I'm absolutely angry.
The Trudeau government has officially pushed a button that they are very much going to regret pushing. You know what happens when you let people push you? They push you and push you and push you until you fall off a cliff, as once said by Jordan B. Peterson. And that is exactly what is happening here. I've never, ever seen somebody call out the absolute devastation, destruction, lies, corruption of the Trudeau government as Premier Danielle Smith does. What happens when you disobey a narcissist? They come for blood. They come to destroy everything and everyone that you love. They turn people against you, and they will go to lengths that most cannot even imagine in order to regain control. When you disobey a narcissist, they will do everything in their power to have you begging them for mercy.
And then they're trying to mislead the public about its intent. And mislead the public about our true record.
Because that totally sounds like something that's helping Canadians. Whew. I'm Jasmine Lane, and if you would like to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, do some finger stretches. The last thing I want is for you to get some carpal tunnel after you are rage commenting on the absurdity that is the Liberal government of Canada today. And if you like the video, that would mean an awful lot. Okay, it's showtime.
Only about an hour ago, Ottawa released details of its oil and gas production cap. It is not an emissions cap, it is a production cap. This cap violates Canada's Constitution. Section 92A clearly gives provinces exclusive jurisdiction, may I say that again, exclusive jurisdiction over non-renewable natural resource development. And yet this cap will require a production cut of an estimated 1 million barrels per day by 2030 and 2.1 million barrels per day by 2035, according to S&P Global. We will continue to defend our province and our constitutional rights. We will also continue to defend the livelihoods of the estimated 150,000 workers nationwide who will lose their jobs as a result of this cap. We will continue to defend the families all across this country who will be left with $419 per month less to be able to pay for groceries and mortgage payments and utilities. We will continue to defend Albertans and Canadians who rely on revenues from oil and gas to pay for the public services that they desperately need, including healthcare, education, law, justice services, roads and bridges. To give you an idea, 1 million barrels a day of lost production at an average rate would cost us in royalties anywhere from $3 billion to $7 billion per year. To put that into context, we spend $2.2 billion on roads and bridges. It would wipe out our entire roads and bridges budget. We spend $3.2 billion supporting assured income for the severely handicapped. It would wipe out that entire program. We spend $2.5 billion on post-secondary for their operating budgets. Again, it would wipe out that entire program. The losses to GDP mean $28 billion will disappear from the Alberta economy, and nationally, $97 billion. Those losses put public services at risk, not only here, but also at the federal level and through the transfers to other provinces.
Canada is in an overwhelming deficit, more debt than we have ever seen, more debt than any past prime minister combined. That is what Justin Trudeau has done to this country. And shocker, I guess when you live your whole life with a silver spoon, when you never have to work, you never have to worry about money, the Liberal supporters will say, oh, well, Pierre Poilievre, he's a career politician. And I'm like, thank God somebody here is. Justin Trudeau has shown us time and time again, like, how much longer are people going to just sit there and believe the BS that he tells them? This isn't a man who loves Canada. You know, remember how he said that when he was first trying to get elected? Canada is in my bones, whatever the hell Aladdin performance that was. This is not a man who cares about our budgets. He doesn't care about our deficits. He doesn't care about the impact that it has on real people in the country that he rules, because he is a dictator. He doesn't care. He just wants your money, and he wants to silence anybody and everybody who tries to go against what is so blatantly, obviously shining right in our faces. He will make Alberta comply. No holds barred. That has been made very, very clear.
Ultimately, this cap will lead Alberta and our country into economic and societal decline. And once again, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is putting reckless policy ahead of the needs and concerns of everyday Canadians. I made note that he would do this on his way out the door. It's like a bad renter who's burning the furniture on their way out. He needs to call an election now to seek a mandate to do this not only to our province but to the country. Once again, Ottawa is putting up roadblocks instead of providing solutions to global energy security. And make no mistake, Alberta and Canada have the ability to provide security to the world. Instead, Justin Trudeau continues to choose to outsource that duty to provide safe, affordable, reliable, and responsibly produced oil and gas to dictators and less clean producers around the world. And tweaks won't work. This cap must be scrapped. As the Business Council of Canada said earlier today, and I quote, imposing an oil and gas emissions cap will only make Canadians poorer. Strong climate action requires a strong economy. The cap will leave us neither. A de facto cap on oil and gas production would restrict cross-border energy trade and harm our shared economic and security interests. Albertans and all Canadians can rely on our government to actively explore the use of every legal option, including a constitutional challenge and the use of the Alberta Sovereignty within a United Canada Act. We will not stand idly by while Justin Trudeau sacrifices our prosperity, our constitution, and our quality of life for his extreme agenda. With that, I'd be happy to take questions.
I'm just wondering what you expect a timeline would be if you were, and do you plan to take this to court? Because we just were hearing, I think it was last week, we talked about the car votes, and that took a year for you to take to judicial court.
Well, as soon as possible. I mean, I'll get my justice minister working on it immediately, and we'll start drafting a motion under the Sovereignty Act immediately as well. So we're going to act very quickly.
And then in Ottawa, Minister Guilbeault said, let me pull up the quote, speaking about your government, they will continue doing stupid things and we will continue doing things to help Canadians. What is your response?
Absolutely not. He is not helping Canadians. He is harming Canadians. 150,000 job losses, the loss of production, which means the loss of revenue, not only for us, but for the rest of the country. An increase in cost on every family's budget to the tune of $419 per month, each and every month. This is not responsible policy. This is a vendetta. Like, he has a deranged vendetta against Alberta. It's very obvious. We've been watching it for some time. He's trying to find a way to get around what the Constitution says. He even acknowledged that they are not permitted to do a production cap because it is natural resources fall under provincial jurisdiction. Somehow he thinks he's going to sneak one in and we won't notice and the rest of the country won't notice. Well, we've noticed, and we think the courts will notice. He cannot do this.
A federal minister, the people representing your entire country, who says that Alberta's doing stupid things. But don't worry, we're going to help you out, like that manipulation tactic to try to coerce the public, to omit the truth. It is so horrendous. It is absolute traitor behavior.
You sound angry. Why are you emotional about this?
I'm pissed. I'm absolutely angry. Because we've been working with these guys for 2 years, because we have a plan that would reduce emissions responsibly by 2050. And they continue to act like they're working collaboratively with us, and then they come out with exactly the same policy that they put forward a year ago, with no changes whatsoever, and then they're trying to mislead the public about its intent. And mislead the public about our true record. In 2018, we had 159.3 megatons of emissions from our oil and gas sector. In 2022, the most recent stats available, 158.3 megatons. So he is not even telling the truth. We are seeing an increase in production and a decrease in emissions exactly like we said we would, because we're relying on technology. We're also going to know that we can decrease global emissions by getting more of our cleaner burning oil and natural gas to the world. They know that, we've told them that, the public knows that, and yet they persist in this pathway, which will harm our province and harm the country. And that is not acceptable. Not for a government that is at, 20% in the polls? Not for a government that is on its way out the door. It cannot destroy the most important industry in the country by targeting our province with this kind of unilateral action. We just won't stand for it.
And Guilbeault said today that the oil and gas sector has done less than most other sectors to reduce its emissions, its carbon footprint. So how much do you agree with that statement?
He's wrong. Minister Schultz will tell you, we set an aggressive target to reduce methane emissions 45%. By 2025. We achieved that target early.
And on that note of the troll demon that is Steven Guilbeault and some of the things that he said today regarding this, when they were questioned about what Danielle Smith just talked about.
In the same vein, I've heard the leader of the Conservative Party that you've all spoken about here today, Pierre Poilievre, say that we could actually reduce emissions more globally by exporting natural gas to countries that could then eliminate coal. So you look like you wanted to answer the previous question.
Well, I mean, first of all, Mr. Poilievre often says things that he actually doesn't fully understand. And it's not that straightforward. And in fact, there was a recent study that I think came out of Stanford that actually showed that in the context of the United States and the way in which gas is produced, it's actually worse than coal with respect to overall life cycle emissions. That's not necessarily true in Canada, but it's not true in Canada because we're putting in place methane emissions in the upstream, and we're requiring that when you liquefy natural gas that you do it with clean electricity. So there can be a benefit if you put in place measures that Mr. Poilievre opposes, and if you are ensuring that where you're shipping to it, you're actually displacing coal and you're not displacing renewables. So somebody who believes in climate change can make an argument as to how Canada can do some of that in terms of addressing global emissions on a small scale. But unless you put in place a climate plan, it doesn't work. Your emissions are worse.
And we have all kinds of proposals that have come forward. We've got Dow Chemical with their net zero petrochemical plan, which is going to decarbonize the petrochemical industry. We've got Air Products with their net zero hydrogen facility, which will create a new form of fuel, not only for home heating and transportation, but also potentially for electricity generation. We have Heidelberg that is working towards a final investment decision for net zero cement, which will decarbonize cement, which is the second most traded commodity in the world. All of that is happening right here in Alberta. We have the Pathways Project, which just started a pathway to get to net zero by 2050. We have Capital Power and others who are looking at ways that they can bring nuclear into our province, which takes time to be able to develop the regulatory process and get approvals. We have seen dramatic improvement on the part of our largest producers because they're investing in technology. Technology takes time. You cannot snap your fingers and say it has to be done by 2026. You cannot snap your fingers and say it has to be done even by 2030 or 2035. The only way to achieve these unrealistic targets is to shut in our production. I know it, they know it, we're calling them out on it, and they have to stop it. And so there is absolutely no justification for this other than because they think they can get away with it, and they can't.
So you think, and I quote, that it's a deranged vendetta? You don't think it's for the common good, for fighting climate change?
Absolutely not. If he was working towards the common good, he would be working with us on a strategy to reduce emissions over time by 2050 so that we can make sure that we're adopting the best available technology, giving the time for the industry to develop that, develop the market so that we can export our product to reduce emissions nationwide. Heck, if we were to reduce the reliance China has on coal-fired plants, with our clean burning LNG, just 20% conversion of their coal plants would be net zero for Canada. It would remove the equivalent of the same amount of emissions of our entire country. Those are the kind of things that he should be focused on, and instead he's trying to shut down our industry, and we see it.
But he's not Minister of Environment for China. He's Minister of Environment for Canada.
Well, he's on a national panel in China that he went to a year ago. He seems to think it's okay for China to have a 2060 target and for him to engage in advising them, meanwhile asking us to achieve unachievable emissions targets. He should be putting Canada first. He should be putting Alberta as a province first, and he's not.
I'll leave that one with you to think about, which you can let me know in the comments down below. Again, subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. Like the video, that helps it be shown to more people. Give me a follow on other social media platforms as well, and I will talk to you next time.